The 2023 season has turned from bad to good, then to a reality check one for McLaren, as the Woking-based squad struggled to find grips with the car and ended up in P17 and P19 with both of its drivers. Norris has spoken on the situation yet again, and it seems like there aren't some good times coming ahead for the team, even though they brought a massive upgrade to Baku. So, how will this turn out for Norris's future, after the young Briton did admit that he feels more challenged and pushed by his younger teammate Piastri compared to Ricciardo's 2-year tenure with McLaren? The Miami GP has been a race to forget for McLaren, and ever since both of its drivers got out of qualifying, it was easy to assume that the race in and of itself would be a disaster for the Woking-based squad. This wasn't exactly what they'd hoped when they brought the upgrades to Baku, and as Stella said, it was definitely a reality check for the team, and something they need to memorize for a long time now, that they're one of the slowest, if not the slowest teams on the grid. But we'll get to that later in this video. First, let's see how Norris feels about the Miami GP and what this means for the future of the young Briton. It's not a secret that Norris is already being linked to the exit doors of McLaren, and after the poor start of the 2023 season, the rumour mill just keeps circulating faster and faster. One thing that Norris has put on as a reprimand and an ultimatum to McLaren is that they should build a championship winning car from 2025 onwards, and as all things stand, it's very unlikely that we'll see this scenario come true. The Miami GP outcome points in this direction as well, and while Norris was very disappointed after the qualifying session, he did say, "I'm expecting it to be quite easy, the race on Sunday. We've been saving maybe a couple of seconds in the pocket for tomorrow, so we just want to have a fun race." Well, if you consider P17 and P19 to be fun places to finish a race, then McLaren had the most fun out of the entire grid combined. After the race, Norris was vividly disappointed with every aspect of the MCL 60. And furthermore, even went on to say that Piastri is now challenging him much more than Ricciardo used to do in the pair's two infamous seasons together in 2021 and 2022. When talking about the outcome of the latest race, as well as what that potentially means for him and his future with McLaren, Norris went on to say, "Tough day, we just struggled with pace. I had a good start, but we got hit from behind into turn 1, which then put us at the back. We had tried a different strategy, which required something exciting to happen during the race, but it didn't work. We'll go back to MTC, reset, and keep pushing hard for a better result in the next one." Piastri went on to say that he's had a lot of issues with the car in the race, as around the 6th or 7th lap, he experienced an issue with the brake-by-wire system. Prior to that, the young Aussie had made 5 positions at the race start on the soft tyres, and just when we thought that the race looked promising for the rookie, he went on to suffer again from the reliability issues that kept him out of competition, and this seems to be the reality of McLaren. Piastri may be asking himself why he refused that Alpine seat, but nonetheless, this is what he needs to deal with right now, and on the positive side for him, he's been putting Norris, the superstar of the team, under a lot of pressure. Andrea Stella has also been very critique-oriented of his team's performance, and after the devastating result in Miami, he went on to add, "The main takeaway is that after a decent weekend in Baku from a performance point of view, we had a reality check. The information we gained here helps us understand that some development directions still need to be pursued, like improving the car in off brakes, off throttle. At the moment, the car just doesn't work in this condition. At tracks like this becomes too much of a limitation." Now, when it comes to the braking system, McLaren doesn't seem to understand how to make the car work properly and how to make every part of it synergize with one another, which seems to be the main issue as of now in 2023. The team went from a solid midfield position, fighting for the best of the rest title in 2022 with Alpine, to the back of the grid in a massive drop-off in performance. After all, it seems like the staff reshuffle and Seidel leaving the team for Sauber have left a huge hole that cannot be filled with replacement or an entire shake-up of the organisation, and many are blaming Zak Brown for what comes next for McLaren. Now, according to Norris, however, the only other team that underperformed in Miami was AlphaTauri, and for McLaren to be compared to the Italian squad is a bit of a punch in the gut that they have to take right now. Although Norris's race was ruined by De Vries's late attempt at braking, something he's been doing quite a lot of, in Norris's words, it was definitely not the sole reason as to why the Briton has had the disappointing race, as he went on to add, "The track doesn't suit us, longer corners don't suit us, the temperature doesn't suit us, track surface doesn't suit us. There are many different aspects of it all. No one was slow either this weekend. Maybe the AlphaTauris were the only other slow car. Everyone else was pretty quick. The Alfa Romeos were mega fast. Haas were mega fast. The Alpines were way quicker. I wouldn't say we were that much different to where we've been, it's just that everything else was a big step forward, and a lot of this is just down to the car characteristic in my opinion. All in all, the situation at McLaren is far from perfect, and as all things stand right now, Norris will definitely look into his options beyond the Woking-based squad. There is an interesting situation developing at Red Bull, one that might see the Briton joining Verstappen from 2025 onwards, as Ralf Schumacher has spoken about the dissatisfaction that the Dutchman has with Perez and how the Mexican might be on his way out sooner rather than later. Perez has been showing teeth very frequently in 2023 to Verstappen, and the fact he has 2 wins out of 5 races goes on to show that the championship fight is definitely on. While he's yet to prove that he can take on Verstappen on a more traditional circuit and not the limited street venues, the last thing that Red Bull would want is a number 2 driver who believes he can take on Verstappen. However, signing a highly talented driver like Norris will definitely push Verstappen to his limit, similar to what Piastri is currently doing to young Britain. But on the other hand, we know that Seidel is very close with Norris, and the fact that Alfa Romeo is leaving the sport and Sauber is rebranding into Audi from 2026 onwards goes on to show that there is a lot of hope that we'll have another competitive team ahead of us. Now, if you give Seidel an opportunity to sign any driver on the grid, our bet is on Norris, and Seidel himself said that the Briton is definitely high on his list when it comes to choosing the perfect duo for his new team. Apart from these 2 teams, there are some interesting scenarios happening in Ferrari and Mercedes that might see an opening for Norris, as I doubt that he'd want to accept being Verstappen's teammate and having to fight him from the same team. After all, we've all seen what happened to Perez once he started to show more competitiveness in the same car, and from Baku, he strangely started to suffer high tire degradation in Miami and lost the lead of the race to Verstappen, who started back at P9. Ferrari, Audi or Mercedes could give Norris the better car to challenge Red Bull, especially after the FIA has been constantly called to make changes to the regulations before 2026. But while this is definitely not going to make McLaren more competitive, it will help Norris's desired teams in cutting down the lead to Red Bull and therefore increase the chances of him being competitive sooner rather than later. Well, with this in mind, it's up to us to wait and see what Norris will decide on his future. But one thing is for sure, it doesn't look good for McLaren. So where do you think Norris sees his Formula 1 future? And do you think that his days with McLaren are already numbered? Or do you think that he will stay and make it work with the Woking-based squad? Let us know in the comments down below.